what's up? I am gonna do a reading on two choices and or like if you're making a decision, the pros and cons of each choice. Like if you choose this or if you choose that. I like to use pros and cons readings for myself because I feel like every single situation has pros and cons. And every time I've done it, it has been, for myself, it has been like super accurate and helpful in telling me the pros and cons, like the general pros and cons vibe-wise of each choice, and it has helped me decide. I haven't always listened, but it has always been accurate. So, if you're into that sort of thing, and just go ahead and think of a decision in which you would choose one way or the other way, or do this or don't do this, or do this or do this, something like that, okay? And I'm gonna get the piles from that. Pile one. Whoop, that's a lot of cards. Hold on. This one. Rooster. Pile two. Pile two. Crow. We got a bird theme going on. Okay. Pile three. Boar. So you can go ahead and pick your pile. Pile one, rooster. Pile two, crow. Pile three, boar. All right, hello pile one. If you chose the rooster, this is for you. We are going to look further into the decision you're making and the pros and cons of each choice. So it could be like you're choosing whether or not to do something, like you're choosing whether you're going to do something or not do something. It could be you're choosing between two different options, but this is pros and cons of each option. So there will be a card representing and like a setup representing the pros of one option and a setup representing the pros and cons of the other option. So there will be pros and cons for each option you choose. But you got the rooster representing your choice. And the rooster card talks about whether or not to the key word for this card is dominance. It talks about whether or not to assert yourself, whether or not to essentially mark your territory, or like could be a situation where are you going to make yourself known in some way, or are you going to just like let it slide, okay? So we're going to do think of the first option in your head. If that sounds like you, hopefully this is where you're going. But think of like the first option of your decision in your head, and that's what we're looking at, option number one, and then we're going to look at the pros and cons. So option number one will be represented by just these made a popped out to me. I'm just gonna go with this one. Okay, option number one, the lamb. So if you're choosing whether or not to assert yourself or not in some area, like whether it be to like ask for something that you want, whether it be to like tell somebody what you want or what you don't want, what wasn't cool, this is going to be the option that is like the choosing peace option, choosing not to. Option number two Option number 2. Whoa, that was a little messed up. Option number 2. Let me move this out a little further too. Option number 2. Whoa! The graveyard. Interesting. So it could even be that you're choosing whether to keep the peace or whether to completely walk away from a situation. But regardless, I think you're choosing from keeping the peace over here or making your desires known, making your what your thoughts on the situation are known, okay? So we're going to look at the pros and cons of each choice. Okay, what are the pros of option number 1, which seems to be something to do with keeping the peace? Pros of option 1. We've got King of Wands in reverse. Okay, and the cons of option number 1. The Hierophant in reverse. Okay. So I think the pro for you of the situation, because the Lamb card specifically does talk about chasing your inner child and your spontaneity and stuff like that. And the King of Wands in reverse can talk about recklessness, following your impulses and stuff like that. So I think that the pros from your perspective would be that you get to follow your impulses of option 1. So option 1 is like something to do with keeping the peace, keeping the positive vibes, keeping the good atmosphere, okay? So choosing the option that like keeps the peace and seems to be like a happy, positive option. The pro for your perspective is that like you get to be impulsive, you get to follow your impulses, you get to go wherever the wind takes you, okay? And the con, it's possible that somebody told you to choose the option that gives you the most joy, and that is bad advice, but that's like not good advice. But regardless, the con is, so I think that the con is that you will be, because this can also talk about going against the path, like against the traditional path. I think that this option, number 1, is something that you want, but it's not necessarily something that's good for you, is what I'm getting. And the pro of choosing this option is that you will be choosing what feels good, but it's going to take you off course a little bit. It might feel like it's like going against what is in your foundationally best interest, because there's a difference between what makes you feel good and what builds your future, builds your foundation, builds a solid foundation for you. And it feels like this choice, the pros are that you will you get to follow what feels good, but it might take you off the path of what actually will build what you logically and foundationally want. So let's look at this graveyard, option number 2, pros and cons, in which I think this option has to do with not going towards something. So I'm pretty sure option 1 is going towards something, and option 2 is not going towards something or stopping something. Okay, so what option number 2, pros and cons. Pros. What is the pro of option number 2? what is the pro? Okay. King of Cups. So right off the bat, one pro is going to be emotional stability. One pro is going to be, I'm getting like a sense of like emotional longevity, stability, okay? Not just like following positive emotions right now, but emotional stability for like more of a foundation of positive emotions and emotional stability. What are the cons of option number 2? The Magician. Can I get one more for the cons of option number 2? Page of Pentacles in reverse. So the cons are that you are, of option number 2, you are giving up an opportunity, or it feels like you're giving up an opportunity. To you, it can feel like you're giving up an opportunity. It feels like you're giving up an opportunity that you want to follow. But I'm going to tell you, every time I've done a pros and cons, what it essentially does is give me cards that like really tell me what my emotional perspective is, but what the actual perspective is. Like what the logical and the emotional perspective is. Because for King of Wands in reverse to come out as a pro, it doesn't really make sense, right? Because King of Wands in reverse is not seen as like the best move. It's seen as like the King of Wands is kind of going off the rails. He's kind of following his reckless impulses. He's not making the best decisions for his vision. Like the King of Wands has a vision, and when he's in reverse, he's not making the best decisions for his vision. But you got it in the pro. So that means that to make this choice for option 1, which I'm pretty sure is going towards something or continuing something, it feels like a pro to continue it because you're following your impulses. It feels like it's good, but it also gives you the vibe here, especially with the con being the Hierophant in reverse, that it feels like it's good in the moment. That's the pro. Right now it feels good. But in the long run, it's not sustainable, it's not stable. That's the con, is that it's taking you off your path. And then over here, we have, to either seize the situation, like stop doing the situation or the choice, or not move towards the choice is this option. And for this one, you've got your pro is emotional stability. It goes back to, like, it really goes back over to this one. But the con is you feel like you're losing a huge opportunity. And, like, see how it all kind of blends together is that your emotional perspective is that you want to follow what emotionally feels good to you, but it's actually not going to be good for you in the long run, is what I'm kind of getting out of this. And I want to get a little bit of advice. So let's see if we can get some advice for you for this situation. What do you need to hear about this situation? What does pile 1 need to hear about this situation? Okay. Elephant. And then the Panther in reverse. And so these two cards are kind of thematic, like they kind of go together. It gives me a vibe that you feel bad about your emotions. And it's like you don't, like they're both of these cards are kind of saying, because this one's in the reverse, okay? they're both saying, like, talking about self-acceptance. And this one specifically talks about accepting that you did the best you could with what you had at the time. And this one in the reverse talks about, like, feeling shame for who you are, or for your emotions, for your choices. Both of them talk about feeling shame for your choices. So I think that if you've already made a choice that feels like a bad, like, if you've already made option one, because this is definitely making the choice and this is definitely not making the choice of whatever your situation is. If you've already made the choice and like, because this talks about stopping a situation. So if you've already made the choice and you're really like concerned with stopping the situation, and that's what you were asking about, and the advice is really saying, like, the cards are kind of saying it's better for the long run for you to stop or for you to not do the thing. It's saying that, like, if you already made the choice, there's no need for you to, like, shame yourself, beat yourself up, feel bad about it, get stuck in the muck, really. Like, essentially, don't beat yourself up about it. Ooh. And essentially just, like, learn from the situation, but in a way that's empowering and not disempowering. Is there anything else we can get for advice for pile one's options, choices, pros and cons? Anything else for advice? Page of Wands in reverse. The Wands energy. Again, it's really just like saying that I think you're being cautioned to not follow your impulses so harshly, but to also not beat yourself up about following your impulses. You know what I mean? Like, just saying, like, following your impulses feels good, but it might take you off course. And not following your impulses might feel like you're missing an opportunity, but it's this choice has emotional stability. This choice does not have emotional stability. And then down here it's saying, like, but also don't beat yourself up for following your impulses, but, like, know that it might not, it just might not turn out in your favor, essentially, is what I'm getting from this. All right, that's about all I have for you, pile one. I hope that this was helpful in some way. Thank you so much for watching. Bye. Hello, pile two. If you chose the crow, then this is your reading. And we're going to look into a choice that you're making. It could be like choosing to do or not do something, or choosing between two different options. But either way, it's do or not do something, or two different options. So we're going to have a side for option number one, a side for option number two, and then the pros and cons of each choice. So option number one, pros of it, cons of it. Option number two, pros of it, cons of it. And just off of the crow card, this card talks about spirituality. It also talks about transformation a little bit, psychic abilities, stuff like that. So could have something to do with spirituality, psychic abilities, transformation. So option number one, let's get a card for option number one, representing option number one. The rainbow. It came out in reverse though. But and a card representing option number 2. Okay. The swamp. That's interesting because the swamp is like a transformation-based card. The swamp is very much about like inner work. So this is an interesting combination because if this had come out upright, it would be about a rebirth. Like, so in a transformation, you have the recognition that you have to go within and make some changes. Then you have the period in time where you're making the changes, essentially draining the swamp, where you're reflecting, where you're like transmuting negative into positive, releasing what no longer works, and all this other stuff. And then after the transformation, you have what this card is talking about, which is like the moment of clarity, the moment of lightness, the rebirth, okay? So if this had come out upright, it would be talking about the end of the transformation. It would be talking about the rebirth period. And this card specifically talks about death and rebirth. But you got it in the reverse, in which it talks about being stuck in negativity. Being stuck in negativity. And what's interesting is that this card is about the necessary process, if you've ever heard the term drain the swamp, of getting out the things that no longer serve you, emotionally speaking. It talks about going within and draining the swamp, releasing, getting rid of the things that are making you stagnant, holding you back, etc. So to me, it feels like you've been doing a lot of like shadow worky type stuff, a lot of inner healing, a lot of emotional work and stuff like that. And your choices, because it's like, to me, it's like, okay, the options here are to remain in a negative mindset or to do inner work. But it's like, this card, what's confusing a little bit and like interesting about the situation is that this card wants to, like, if it's upright, it would be after this, in the transformation process. Like, it would be after it's like a sequence, you know? You do this, you lead to this. So it's interesting that it came out as one of the options, but in reverse. And to me, the only thing I can think is that, like, option 1 is unnecessary negative mindset, or like unnecessary staying in reinforcing, or it could talk about false positivity. It could also talk about false positivity. And this one could talk about doing the uncomfortable inner work of assessing what's working for you and what's not. So either way, this, like, whether this is talking about false positivity or whether it's talking about unnecessary negativity, this option is very much being in an frame of mind that is not serving you. And this option is doing inner work. Okay? So it seems to me that your choices are, whatever it is, it seems like you're choosing between doing more inner work and a mindset, or doing inner work and a mindset. This one is like staying in a mindset that may or may not be serving you. Let's see. The pro of option 1. Can we get the pro of choice 1? What is the pro of choice 1? Six of Wands. Okay. And then the con of option 1. Okay. See, this is interesting. The con is socialization. Well, okay, and I said this in the first one, but I want to make it known. When I do these readings for myself, I always see the pros and cons as like, there's always like a theme of the pros based off of your emotions, or based off of your perspective, and the cons based off of your perspective, but it might not actually be pros and cons, like, for when it comes to your best interest, if that makes sense. So it seems like the pros of option 1, because I'm just also noticing the symbolism in this card with the pot of gold in it. So it feels like there might be an element of like your own self-interest. Okay? And to you, the cons of option 1. Oh my God, I'm just seeing this. It's like, it feels like maybe you don't fully want to be in the rebirth phase because you're not quite ready to step out of, like, it feels like you're resisting stepping out of the hermit mode, the inner reflection mode, because you feel like you're not ready. You feel like you're not, you feel like you have more work to do. I don't think you do, but it feels like you feel like you have more work to do. Like you haven't perfected yourself yet. You're not ready to go out into the world because you still have more inner work to do. And it's like, you can get stuck in that forever, man. And you're probably cooler than a lot of people, because a lot of people aren't doing any inner work. You know what I mean? So it feels like option 1 for you has to deal with getting stuck in a false negative mindset, right? And the pros of continuing to do work that doesn't need done on yourself, really, to beat yourself up. Like, you feel, I feel like your option number 1 is you're actually just beating yourself up. And you feel like that's going to bring you success. And it might bring you some sort of success. And you feel like the con is that you have to go out into the world when you're not ready to go out into the world because you feel like you're not good enough to go out into the world, okay? But that's just your feeling. And I don't think that, like, I feel like you might be beating yourself up. I want to get clarifiers and advice, but I'm going to go over to this option 2 first. Actually, let me just get something to tie it together really quick. Yeah, so to tie this together, for sure, I think that you're like, it's like you're wanting to continue. This choice is all about self-perfection, perfecting yourself, okay? And it's saying that, like, the pros of continuing down this path of trying to perfect yourself is success, and the cons is community and fun. Which, that's, dude, I vibe with this, honestly. So let's look at the pros and cons of doing like, assessing what's going on internally that is no longer serving you. That's option number 2. That's what it's represented by. Inner work. Pros and cons of inner work. Pros and cons of inner work. Pros and cons of inner work. Pro is the Fool. Con is, this came out in the reverse. Two of Wands in reverse because I accidentally flip-flopped them. So the pro of option number 2 is you'll be on a completely different trajectory that you want to go on. It's a good one. It's a positive one. It's an exciting one. And the con is that you don't know where it's leading you. And I'm actually seeing this now where it's like, the choices are option 1 and option 2. Option 1 is like moving on, but you're resisting. My light just went out, so I had to turn it back on. But I am I keep having this thing where I know I understand what option 1 and what option 2 is, but it's like so hard to explain it because of the way that they are opposites, but they're working together and they're like flip-flopped, okay? So, because it's like this option is continuing in an unnecessary negative mindset. Because if it was upright, it would be sequentially after this one. This is necessary inner work. This is an unnecessary negative mindset. This, so it's like, I know exactly. So what I think is happening here is that option 1 is to continue doing unnecessary inner work. And option 2 is to like go in and see why you're doing unnecessary inner work so that you can release the unnecessary inner work, drain the swamp. And I think that's what's really confusing about explaining the options is because of how they're like intermingling. But so option 1 is doing unnecessary inner work. Essentially, you're beating yourself up because this should be upright. You should be in clarity mode. You should be in rebirth mode. But your choice is like unnecessary inner work. And it's saying that like from your perspective, the pros are perfection, are success, okay? And the cons are community, fun, going back out into the world, having a good time. The cons are having a good time, okay? It's like for you, the choice of doing unnecessary inner work, like beating yourself up, trying to make yourself perfect, you feel as though, like I said, you're beating yourself up for no reason. You're trying to make yourself perfect, and all you're doing is avoiding fun, avoiding having a good time, okay? And then this one over here, option number 2 is, it's figuring out why it is that you keep wanting to beat yourself up and you stay in an unnecessarily negative mindset and releasing it, draining the swamp. Option number 2, the pro, is a completely new journey. Like you're set on a completely new trajectory. And the con is that you don't get to know what happens next. And it feels like, because to me what it feels like is you just keep staying on the same course because you're trying to make sure you know what happens next. And you can't know what happens next. But it's like the Fool upright is like a positive, exciting, new, like this guy's embarking on a new journey and he's excited and it's like positive and he's ready to learn some things, okay? So it's like, yeah. Your perspective is that you don't want to be done because you don't want to be in the phase where you're just like ready to go out and begin anew. You're scared of or maybe not scared, but you don't want to enter into the rebirth phase when you feel like you're not ready, you're not perfected, you don't know what's going to happen next. And I'm really getting the sense that that's not working out in your best interest. But can I get some advice? Can we get some advice about this situation? Okay. Hold on. advice. Boop. The bear. So this bear, pretty clear, cut, and dry, to me, is saying that you're running yourself ragged. It's time for you to just, like, chill out, okay? I just thought of the bare necessities, okay? And I'm thinking of the bear from the Jungle Book. And he's in mode, like, his mode is definitely don't stress yourself out and work too hard when you don't have to. Like, chill when you don't need to do everything. What's that phrase? Work smarter, not harder. So it's like you don't have to be constantly trying to perfect yourself and work on yourself and work on blah, blah, blah. You can chill out sometimes, man. Only work when you need, like, only put forth the effort when you need to put forth the effort, and rest when you need to rest. And just let whatever unfolds unfold, because it feels like it's coming from, like, you're overworking yourself very much from a place of fear of the unknown and fear of scarcity. So you're overworking yourself to try to combat that, but you don't have to. The advice is find the balance, rest when it's time to rest, work when it's time to work. Don't force yourself to work. Any more advice for pile number 2? Any more advice for pile number 2? God, that's a crap ton of cards. How am I supposed to choose from all these? Put them all together and tap them until one of them calls my name. Oh shit, that one tried to pop out before, actually. I'm not even doing it because this one tried to pop out already. So the graveyard in reverse. Yeah, intuitively, you feel like you're giving up by chilling out, but you're not giving up by chilling out. Like, I feel like your advice here is it's time for you to chill. Okay? So it's like, so figure out whatever it is that's making you, but you don't even have to figure it out because the cards are telling me. Figure out whatever it is that's making you essentially continuously overwork yourself to try to make yourself perfect. Figure out whatever it is, but the cards are telling you it's because you're afraid of uncertainty and you're afraid of scarcity. And get rid of it. Cut it off, dude. Like, let it go. Release it. Drain the swamp. Okay? Allow yourself to chill. And know that, like, by allowing yourself to chill out and let things start to flow to you, and, like, when something presents itself and you're like, oh, that's a cool thing that I want, let me take the steps to get that thing. Like, I'm thinking of the bear in the Jungle Book. He doesn't really go searching for things. It's not like he's working really hard to go find his next meal. I mean, I think he does kind of con the kid into doing a lot of work for him. But also, just in general, he's like the bare necessities. He's like, essentially, I see something that I need, or I realize that I need the thing, and I like take the path of least resistance in order to get it. But, like, he chills when he can chill, and he does whatever amount of work he has to do when that presents itself to him. So it's like saying that by you allowing yourself to freaking chill, because it seems like you're in a chill period, you're in a flow period, you're in a period where, like, you shouldn't have to be working so hard to make things happen. You should just see the thing happening and you should just go for it. Like, you should see the opportunity and just go for it. You're allowing things to, like, come your way. You're going on a completely new journey. And by allowing yourself to chill out, you're not giving up. That's the advice here. It's saying chill out. Don't beat yourself up. Don't push yourself too hard. Go for what you need or want to go for when it comes your way, when it comes into your mind. You're not going to know. You're not going to be able to plan it. Just go for it when it comes into your mind. And by doing that, you're not giving up, because I think you're afraid that you're giving up and that you are essentially ruining everything you've worked for, but you're not. You're just finding balance and chilling out. Okay. So that's pretty much all I have for you, pile 2. I hope this was helpful. Thank you so much for watching. Bye. Hello, pile 3. If you chose the boar card, this is your reading. We're going to look into choices and the pros and cons of each choice. So it could either be that you're choosing whether to do something or whether to not do something, or it could be that you're choosing to do this thing or you're choosing to do this thing. So it could either be two separate choices or choosing to do something or not do something. But either way, choice number 1 is going to be here. Choice number 2 is going to be here. I've already pulled cards because I thought it was playing that represent each choice. And then we'll do pros and cons of choice 1 and pros and cons of choice 2, and then some advice, okay? So with the Boar card, the Boar is what represents your choice as a whole. And the Boar card talks about being in a very aggressive, assertive energy, and it talks about, are you in this energy so that you can, like, it's in the book it says the destroyer, and it says, are you being the destroyer so that you can make way for something new, or are you being the destroyer so that you can self-sabotage? Okay, so that might have something to do with your choice. You might be wondering, am I self-sabotaging or am I making way for something new? So for option 1, you got the Village. And for option 2, you got the Rainbow. And this gives me a feeling that because boars also are like community focused as well. And this gives me a feeling that you might be choosing between community and community needs and personal needs. There might be something where you're choosing between community needs and personal needs. And you might be like a community-minded person, a very community-focused person, and you might be making a choice on whether or not you should prioritize community or prioritize self-happiness, is what I'm getting here. So let's look at pros and cons for option number 1. Pro for option 1. 2 cards came out, so. Pro. The Hanged Man. Yeah. Let me just. Yeah. It's funny because the last 2 times I've done this, I have forgot to specify one for pro and one for con, and 2 will pop out. And it immediately makes so much sense to me, like these two popped out. So the pro, I think this is about community. The pro for this is self-sacrifice. You feel, choosing option 1, the pro is self-sacrifice. You feel most comfortable in self-sacrifice. And the con is conflict. You feel most comfortable in self-sacrifice because you don't want to be in conflict with those you love, those you care about. You don't want to have conflict in your community. You would rather self-sacrifice than have conflict, okay? That's what I'm getting for option number 1, which likely has to do with your community. The pros of choosing community or choosing option number 1 is self-sacrifice, which you're comfortable with, and the con is conflict, which you're not comfortable with, okay? So, and like 5 of Wands, because it's really easy to get confused between 5 of Wands and 5 of Swords. There's a difference between the conflict. So 5 of Wands is essentially fighting for your place, not fighting for your opinion. It's more like fighting for your, like, what you feel is yours. You're fighting for your, I don't want to say like your role, but it is kind of, it's like the Five of Wands is more about fighting for, like, a position. It's like a bunch of peers fighting for one position, okay? And it looks like you're choosing between, so maybe like within your community, like work or whatever, it could be home, it could be work, it could be some sort of extracurricular activity that you do in your free time, whatever. You want to potentially seek a certain role in this community, but you don't want to cause conflict, and you're much more comfortable just letting somebody else do it so that you don't have to stir up trouble. And that's option 1. So the con is conflict. The pro is self-sacrifice. And I said this in all the piles. When I do these readings for myself, my intention and the way that I read them is the pros and cons coming out they're telling me your emotional perspective, but they're also telling me what's best for you based off of your emotional perspective. So your emotional perspective is that you're more comfortable in conflict, and you're more comfortable sacrificing yourself than stirring up trouble and being in conflict. But that's not necessarily what's best for you. So let's look at pros and cons of choosing of option 2, which is very likely has to do with choosing yourself in some way, choosing what's best for you, choosing what you want in some way. So the pros. Pros. Okay. Confidence, self-expression, confidence, and these are bended, and I don't know why, man. Cons, Jesus, that came out so quick. Interesting. Hold on. Cons. Yep, the world. Okay. So the pro, Queen of Wands, is confidence, stepping into yourself, your self-expression, your individuality, your empowerment. And the con is closure of a situation. So it might be, you might be in a situation where, like, if you really chose yourself in this situation, the situation would come to a completion. But what I want to say about this, just from my perspective, is that, like, if you would lose somebody, or you would lose a community because you chose to express yourself and be yourself and find happiness for yourself, like, if you would lose your community for choosing yourself, then that's not the right community for you, because nobody should want you to sacrifice yourself. Nobody should want you to make yourself small. Nobody should want you to be miserable so that they can feel good. So it feels like you probably already know this, and that's probably why you're going back and forth. And I'm not saying, like, oh, choose yourself over others always, but I am saying that there's a balance. You know, there's this discussion on the internet that has been happening for the last couple years about individuality versus, like, community, and how people prioritize individuality too much and people prioritize self needs too much and stuff like that. And it's like, okay, but you have to prioritize, like, you can't make yourself miserable to make other people happy. So there has to be a balance, and there are nuances. And if you're in a community where expressing yourself makes you lose people, or lose the situation, or lose your position in that community, then, like, that's not the community for you. Because It shouldn't just be like, it's not balanced if you have to give up yourself in order to be a part of that community. Balance in a good community would be you guys are able to work together and find common grounds. It's not you have to be miserable to make sure all of us are good. So, what is the... And I gotta say that, like, when that conversation was being had, I'm sorry, I'm just ranting right now, but when that conversation first started being had, hardcore, my problem with it was that, like, I felt like there were a lot of people who are, and it's, I don't think anyone, like, I don't like to be the person to be like, oh, they're a narcissist, they're an energy vampire, da-da-da-da-da. Like, I think that people do stuff like that a lot of times unconsciously. They drain energy because they aren't working on themselves, because they don't know, because they're unconscious. They don't know that they're doing it. Like, I don't think people are evil most of the time when they're being energy vampires. But I did think there were a lot of people in that conversation making it sound like you should put everyone else before yourself. And the reason they were doing that is for selfish reasons, because they didn't know how to take care of themselves, so they wanted the world around them to do that. And there are people out there who will do that. They will make you feel bad about choosing yourself when you have to choose yourself. There's always a balance. Like, we should be there for our community. We should help our community out. We should be helping each other. We should care about each other. But also, if somebody wants you to be miserable so that they can be kind of happy, like, no, that's no. What is your advice? Okay, that was quick. The Fox. Anything else? Advice, advice, advice. In the desert. Just with the Fox alone, I'm feeling strongly that you are being encouraged to do what you have to do to raise yourself up, to express yourself. So with the Fox, I'm very much getting the advice here is, like, don't be afraid to do, as long as you're not hurting anybody. Like, if somebody thinks that you going for what's best for you is like hurting them, and you're not hurting them, you're just going for what's best for you, but they might lose an opportunity because you've succeeded. If somebody thinks that your success is hurting them, like, screw that. That it's your success is not hurting anyone. So like, it's the way of the world, as long as you're not actually hurting people. But this to me is saying, do what you have to do for your self-expression, your happiness, your success. If you have to learn things, learn things. If you have, like, go for it. Go for it. Okay? And this is saying, this one over here is just, like, kind of a warning that I think you're really afraid of potentially relationships or situations ending, and you're really worried of conflict. This is saying, yes, those things are going to suck. Like, it's going to hurt when they go away because you're used to them. But them going away is ultimately going to lead to a better place. It's going to lead to more happiness, more fulfillment, etc. And, like, if you look at this too, the desert is dark with this rainbow sun, and then you have this rainbow over here. So it's like, yes, will it suck? It will hurt. It will be painful to end this chapter of your life, or to cause conflict, or to da-da-da-da-da. It will hurt. It will be painful, but it will lead to way more opportunities, a way better life, a more authentic life, a happier life, because of the fact that you were willing to just choose yourself. Because none of this is saying, like, these options are not, should I, like, hurt somebody to help myself? Like, it's not saying, oh, should I hurt somebody? You're not hurting anybody. So the fact that you have to worry about literally just choosing your happiness in a way that's not hurting anybody is goofy. And people will convince you that that's wrong, and it's not wrong to choose your happiness, as long as you're not actually, like, because people like to use, this is what I want to say. A lot of people, like, who are manipulative and who are probably unconscious energy vampires, like to do this thing where they say, like, oh, but your choices are hurting me because it hurts me to see X, Y, and Z, but it's not actually hurting them. Like, if you picked up a stick and beat somebody with a stick, your choices would be hurting them. But if you picked up a stick and beat the wall with a stick, and they say, like, some people will then be like, oh, your choices are hurting me because it hurts me to see you behave this way. But you're not actually hurting them. You're not actually doing anything wrong. You're not actually affecting their life. It just hurts them because of their expectations of you, in which they have no right to have expectations of you. They have no right to choose. Or, like, if it is a situation where you are in some sort of competition for a role, or maybe you're not even in competition for a role. If you expressed yourself authentically, you know for a fact that you would get some sort of like recognition, or your life would be better, or like you would have more fun. But you doing that means that somebody else doesn't have a hold over you, a grip over you, doesn't have the upper hand. And that person or that group or whatever would be so upset with you that they would, like, it would be conflict, and they might, like, your relationship might end. You might not be a part of that group anymore. And it's like, they have no entitlement to, that's the energy I'm really picking up on, is somebody has entitled energy, and you probably feel like you would rather just sacrifice yourself and let this entitled group or person do whatever they want to do, so that you don't, like, make themselves big and make you small. You'd rather make yourself small so that they don't get upset with you. That's goofy. This is saying that, like, do what you need to do as long as you're not hurting anybody. And manipulative people, again, I will say this, having been on the receptive end, will say, oh, but your choices hurt my feelings because, like, even if this is just an example, but like if you and your friend both had the same dreams, like say you both wanted to do the same exact job, okay? And you've both applied to a bunch of different places, and you both have the same, like, perfect place in mind. And your friend, like, you get hired to the same perfect, like, to a perfect place, to your guys' both of your guys' favorite place, but your friend doesn't. And your friend, like, in this scenario, the manipulative thing that person or group would do is tell you it's wrong for you to take that because that's my favorite place too. Because guess what? They're fucking manipulative, because if they were in the same exact position as you, they would just take it and they'd be like, oh, I'm sorry. But some people will manipulate you and convince you that your success is hurting them because their feelings are hurt, and that's not the case. It's so, like, I really want to, like, I don't know why I'm getting on this, but I'm being very, like, weary about people manipulating you into making yourself small. But the advice is, do what you have to do to get what you want, as long as you're not hurting anybody. And it will hurt if you lose people, but ultimately it will be way better in the long run, because first of all, you'll be living more authentically. Second of all, you'll be weeding out people in situations who don't mesh with you. But it will also, bring more clarity and lightness and opportunity into your life. So, okay. Hopefully that made sense and was helpful. Thank you so much for watching Pile 3. See you later.